Hey guys, I'm Ryan from RC Maker. Today I'm going to be showing you a rebuild on the Awesomatix D2.2 dampers. These are the latest dampers that come with the A800 and the A700 models. There's a few little tricks and stuff that I do, so I thought I'd just share with you the best way I find to build the shocks. So pretty much when you're going to rebuild them, strip them all down until you've got everything. Thing is to use a paper clip, so it's easy, or like a wire or something. First of all, to pop the foam from the bottom here, so you can just press it through here and pop it out the bottom. So it's important to get this foam nice and dry because it gets pretty wet from the oil when it's inside. So I just like to press it against the paper towel and just dry it out. And it can also be deformed quite easily, so just make sure that you keep it nice and spherical. You want it nice and round there so that it doesn't get deformed, and it makes the oil harder to pass, obviously, if it's in the right shape. So first of all, you can go ahead and insert that into the bottom of the damp blade. So we've got that there. Make sure it's nice and flush with the bottom. You don't want it to be up, or else you'll get too much volume of oil in your damper. So basically start with that, then you can go ahead and add some oil to your damper. Make sure all of this stuff's clean first, obviously. We don't want to be mixing oils and this sort of stuff, so maybe clean everything with motor spray first, only the alloy parts. Don't get motor spray on your O-rings because that's really bad for O-rings. So I tend to use much more 500 CST. I really like the much more stuff. It seems really good, really consistent when it heats up. It's pretty much all I've used. So you can go ahead. 500 is usually pretty good. 400 we've been playing around with a bit as well. Some conditions, some's better. It's kind of hard to say, you've got to try for yourself. But generally we run the same in the front and the rear. So you can go ahead, fill it up to about probably 4 mil from the bottom of the blades in there. So you've got your separator blades, you want it to be about 4 mil. And then we'll adjust it once this goes in. So just double checking that your foam is flush. You can put the paddle inside the cylinder. Just give it a bit of a wiggle around just to make sure it's seated. So in here now, you probably want it to be filled up to within about 2 mil from the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit more in here because I haven't put quite enough. So just rotate around. There we go. So it's about 2 mil from the top. So make sure, generally it's better to have it fuller than not quite as full, because, I mean, if it's not full, you're going to get air in there. If it's full, it's just going to bleed out, so it's not really a big deal. You want to let this bleed for quite a while. I mean, you can use a shock pump to speed up the process, but I just tend to leave them for a bit. So with this one, generally I'll just wiggle it around a little bit, and you'll see there's a lot of air bubbles starting to come up. So it takes a while for those to bleed. So here's one that I've already left for about half an hour. Generally I like to do it while I'm doing something, and I'll just go off and do something else for half an hour while I'm waiting. Dampers are something you don't want to rush because it takes a while to pull them out of the car, a while to put them back in, so you may as well take your time with them. So pretty much once you've done that, at the top here, you can screw this on. So just use your 9mm hex. You don't need to do this up super tight because it's got an O-ring in it. Nothing really tends to bypass in this area, so just you can do it up by hand. And now's one of my tricks. I take a 5.5mm hex, and it actually fits perfectly over the shaft and where the bearing goes. So I actually use it to displace a lot of the oil. So if you can see, it's gone and displaced a lot of the oil from around there, and it gets a bit of oil in this, so you can go ahead and clean that off. And just keep doing it until you get all the oil out of there. It's just getting all the excess oil, so when you put the O-ring in, it's not all super wet. So just grab a bit of towel as well, and you can clean the excess off around it. Alright. Now we've got to put the O-ring in. So with the O-ring, you want to use a pretty good grease. I usually use a shock O-ring grease, so something like this is good for O-rings, keeps them lubricated and stops oil going everywhere. So this is a pretty messy job, there's not really anything you can do, so just squeeze out a little bit of oil onto your O-ring like that. You don't need to saturate it, just put a generous amount. You kind of want it covered all over. Alright, once you've done that, you can slide it onto the top of the damper shaft, like that. And then you can again use your 5.5mm wrench and actually push over the shaft like this. And you can push and seat the O-ring nicely. And once again, just clean it off so you don't have oil going everywhere. Alright, so once you've done that, everything's seated, you can go and get your bearing. The bearing now basically holds everything together. It's a fairly tight press fit, and it's like that for a reason, because I mean if it's loose, it's just gonna, if the pressure builds up inside the damper, it's just gonna push the bearing out, and obviously you don't want that. So it is tight, for a reason. I generally put the non-cage side down, because that will be obviously worse when you get dirt in there. So I put the shielded side up, and that then protects the damper from any dirt. Once again, you can use this, put it over, you can seat the bearing down like that. Make sure it's pressed down nice and tight. Then you can just get the tissue and just wipe all your excess oil off. Like that. So now I've got a nice clean damper. So another trick to watch out for here is when you've got the oil displacing when you're building your damper, a lot of it can actually go into the hollow inside the damper paddle here. So what I like to do is get like a 1.5mm driver and actually put it down. I'm not sure if you can see, but you can see a lot of the oil actually displacing out of there, because a lot of oil gets trapped in there because it flows up and then flows into the slot and then goes down. So what can actually happen is when you're racing, you think, oh, my damper's leaking, but actually it's just stuff from there coming out, which is sealed anyway. So really it's not doing anything, but it's going to make your car pretty messy if you don't displace all of that. So just a bit of a process going back and forward. Just get it in there, get all the oil on it, you can wipe it off, go again. So once you've done that, that'll lead to a much cleaner car in the long run. There we go. So the last thing basically is don't forget to put your little shim on. So that protects all of the bearing from getting all the dirt inside of it. And that pretty much seals it off there. So basically you can build your damper like that. A trick to knowing when it's time to build your dampers is you can usually feel the suspension and it will have like a bit of a click when you compress it. I mean, it feels like something's binding or something's actually wrong, but it's not. It's just the damper has a bit of air. So yeah, the damper tends to click when it's got air. So just follow that kind of procedure for all of your dampers. Kind of depends how often you have to replace them. It depends how much you race. Yeah, you've just got to go by feeling, really. I mean, I only rebuild them when they need to be rebuilt, or before a major race meet as well. So yeah, you can check out that. I should have a few more of these kind of videos coming online pretty soon. We'll do some more tips just on learning the A800, because it can be a bit to get your head around for people beginning to drive the car. So you can email me if you've got any questions, ryan@rcmaker.com.au, and you can also check out my website for all the latest Awesomatix parts and tips, www.rcmaker.com.au. Cheers, guys.